Hi, I'm Lexi. This is my practice speech for the call to action, and it's probably going to be a little rough, so I apologize. I'm kind of tired, and finals are stressing me out. So, every year, guns are used over 80 times more often to protect a life than to take one. Imagine a world where taking a night out to the movies with your family can suddenly turn into a terrible event. 1 minute everything's normal, you're laughing along with your friends and your family, and you're watching the movie, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by tear gas, you hear people screaming, and you hear shots being fired. Or imagine sending your preschooler off to school only to later find out that a gunman had attacked their school. Living in the United States, we are privileged with many different rights given to us through the Constitution. We're given the right to speak freely, to peacefully assemble, and given the right to express our religion. But one of the most commonly disputed rights in today's world is the right to bear arms. I chose this topic because I believe that as U.S. citizens, we have slowly let our rights become more restricted. And so I don't think that this is one of the rights that should ever be restricted just because it has helped to protect so many people over the years. First, I will talk about the need for the Second Amendment, and then what we can do to effectively regulate our Second Amendment right, and then I will talk about what life would be like if the Second Amendment wasn't in place. So let's begin with kind of the background of the Second Amendment. So the need for the Second Amendment kind of relates all the way back to the Boston Massacre. It was tension between the British standing army and the colonists in the New Americas. There were 5 men shot and killed in the streets. And so the British presence in the colonies kind of raised awareness about how dangerous a standing army could be. And so Thomas Jefferson said, "No free man shall be debarred the use of arms within his own lands or tenements." And Richard Henry Lee said, "To preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms." And so this is the reason that a militia was formed during the Revolutionary War, because the British standing army completely outnumbered and outgunned the colonists, and so they wanted a way to fight back and to rise up and to be able to stand up for themselves. So they created a militia to be able to use guns to defend themselves against the tyranny of the British Army. And James Madison says that in the Federalist Number 46, that Americans have the right and advantage of being armed, unlike citizens of other countries whose governments are afraid to trust the people with the arms. So in a sense, we are almost very privileged to have this right in the United States, because it is almost a sense of trust between us and the government, that if we do need to rise up, we have all of the ways that we can. We've got guns, and we are allowed to be able to raise up against the government if we need to keep them in check. And it is also a way for us to be to defend ourselves. And so gun control in America is referred to any action taken by the federal government or by state or local governments to regulate through legislation the sale, purchase, safety, and use of handguns and other types of firearms used by individual citizens. So many people argue that, well, gun control, if people took guns out of society, then everything would be a lot safer. But the only thing that they don't account for is that people can get guns illegally. So in 7 News, it says criminals, by definition, do not obey law. So how do more gun laws affect criminals? Because by restricting the gun laws, we are taking guns out of the hands of the innocent and then placing them more so into the hands of the guilty, as they can more so get guns easier because they don't care for the law, and so it could cause quite a bit of turmoil in the country. And so another statistic would be that 3,800 people killed by accidental gunshot from 2005 to 2010. So gun safety needs to be taught, and not gun bans. And so now that we've talked about the problem, let's talk about the solution of banning the Second Amendment. So a good solution would be concealed carry. And concealed carry is the allowance of a citizen of the state to carry a gun in a public place as long as it's concealed. So they can carry it in a leg holster or a hip holster as long as nobody can see it. They're allowed to have it. And so the good thing about concealed carry is that people have to go through different classes to be able to obtain their concealed carry license. They have to take a course to become familiar with the laws of concealed carry as well as the laws of gun control that are in place. And they have to learn how to operate a gun safely so that they're not putting anybody in danger. And a really cool rule about concealed carry is that no felons or mentally ill or abusers are allowed to obtain it. So it makes the restrictions a little bit tighter on who's allowed to carry the guns. And so along with concealed carry, there are pros and cons, as there are to most things. The pros are that the citizens that have concealed carry feel safer. They feel a sense of self-defense. They can defend themselves in situations where they otherwise wouldn't be able to. And then some cons are that the non-carrying citizens feel threatened, and they feel like the people that are carrying the guns are concerned to public safety. However, a statistic says that police officers kill approximately 600 criminals a year. They're allowed to carry guns. They are there for public safety. But citizens with concealed carry actually kill approximately 1,500 criminals a year. So it's not so much that they're a concern to public safety, but they're actually helping out people. And so some instances where concealed carry could have been useful would have been the Aurora Theater shooting or Sandy Hook Elementary shooting, as well as when Congresswoman Gifford was shot outside Safeway along with 5 of her colleagues. And so now that we've talked about how people can exercise their Second Amendment right safely, let's look at how the world could be if guns were taken out of the hands of the citizens. So the Aurora Theater shooting was one gunman. There were 12 people killed, 70 people injured, and there were so many families affected. So we're going to talk about a couple of the testimonies of people that were actually involved in the Aurora Theater shooting. So Jerry Jackson was from Ohio. She had just gotten off the phone with her son. She told him that she loved him and said that she would talk to him later. And he said that he was going to see the premiere of Batman. And she never got to talk to him again because he was shot in the head by the gunman that shot up the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. And it's affected her pretty desperately. She's pretty upset. She's been upset for the past few years. And in a recent interview, she said that she doesn't want to be around people much. She's proud of her son. He saved the life of his girlfriend by laying on top of her. But she says she misses him every day, and it's a hard thing to have to go through to live with. And so another person involved was Pierce O'Farrell, who was actually, he remembers sitting in the movie theater, looking towards the exit, seeing a dark figure walking towards him, guns strapped to both of his sides, and he said that he remembers trying to duck on the floor and save himself. He had been shot in the chest already by some shrapnel that had gone kind of past him and hit some other people, and then the gunman walked up to him and he said everything turned into slow motion, and the gunman shot him straight in the arm and shattered his entire left arm, and he was in the hospital for almost 5 weeks trying to recover from that. And he says that he forgives the gunman, Holmes, but he says that he just saw a really dark person, a really dark figure when he'd seen him on the TV a couple of days later. But it's affected him quite a bit. And then one of the last ones is Tom Sullivan. He was one of the guys that was on most of the newscasts. This picture was, it just kind of shows the horrors of people that were being affected by the shooting. He said that he heard about it when he was at home, and he rushed over to the scene to make sure that his son hadn't been involved. He walked around with a flyer that said, "Have you seen this person?" with his son's picture on it. And actually turns out that his son had been killed also 2 days before his first wedding anniversary. And his family says that they learned to kind of appreciate what they have, but they said some days we're not moving forward, some days we're just making it through. So imagine if one person or 2 or 3 people had concealed carry on them in that theater, they could have risen up and they could have fought back against Holmes, and maybe not as many people or families could have been affected in that situation. So now that we've talked about the problems and the solutions and maybe a possible outcome of concealed carry, let's take action. How many in this room have their concealed carry license? And how many people in this room plan to get concealed carry based off of this kind of information? So, Great Britain has had a gun ban since 1997, and their number of recorded violent attacks rose by 77%. So this kind of relates back to you can't keep the guns out of the hands of the criminals. And so in Great Britain, there are approximately 2,100 violent crimes per 100,000 people. And in the US, there are approximately 500 violent crimes per 1,000 people, 100,000 people. So the right to bear arms is a necessary constitutional right. It gives us a sense of self-defense, as well as can help us keep our government in check. And without the right to bear arms, our world would just be a dog-eat-dog world. And that is my rough draft, and I'm sorry that it was a rough draft. But yes.